Here is a common question. You have a group of characters that you need to introduce because they're all important to the story, but they're all kind of together. How do you introduce a group of characters in a way that can be memorable for the reader who's reading your script? It's a really good question, and we're going to wrestle with that one today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking if you're finding value. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Please do that. Thank you for all those things. There's links below. Hopefully some of those might be helpful to you. Some more information, some free resources. So hopefully that will be helpful to you. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump in. You've got a bunch of characters that we, the audience, need to meet in a relatively short time. How do you do it? Well, let me give you a couple of strategies and then some tips and advice. I do want you to understand something though right at the beginning. The main goal in this is clarity for the reader. That's what you want ultimately. You don't want the reader to be confused. You don't want the reader to be going along and reading and they come across a name and them stop and say, okay, who was that? And now they're looking, because honestly, most readers, if they're having to do that, they're kind of done. So you have to find unique ways to introduce your characters. Now, that doesn't mean find ways that haven't been done before. It means find ways to introduce your characters uniquely. Make your characters unique. Make your characters stand out so when we see them again, we're going to remember them. Let me give you a free tip here right off the bat, and it has to do with naming your characters. See, so many scripts where the names just sound the same. Either they start with the same letter or they have the same number of syllables, Jack and John and Jake. It's like, I can't keep track of those people. Like, I need a Tom and a Franklin and a Wyatt. Like, I can keep those names straight because they sound different. They feel different. So when you are naming your characters, especially if you're going to be introducing them in a group, make sure their names are distinctive enough from each other that the reader can easily track who is who. So I'm going to give you a couple of strategies here for how to introduce characters, and then I'm going to give you a couple of tips which should be helpful to you. One strategy to use is to have your main character kind of lead us through meeting all the other characters in turn. So this works if you're in a work environment and we've met our main character and they're going over here and they meet this person who's going to be important to the story, and then they go over and meet this other person who's important to the story, and then another person who's important to the story. And so we're kind of being led through and meeting the characters one at a time. They're all in the same space and we can kind of do it relatively quickly, hopefully. But this way we get to see how each character who's being met, how they behave in comparison to our main character. Our main character is intimidated by this first person, but they are really attracted to the second person and don't want to let them know, and they feel very timid with the third person. That tells us a lot about the characters, the nature of the relationships, just by how the main character, kind of walks through the scene. One of the negative things with introducing groups of characters this way is you have to make sure that each character we meet is doing something unique. That they're not all doing the same thing, that they all have different roles, they're doing something different. Because again, when we read later in the script about this person, we need to remember who that is. Like, oh, that's the person who really likes staplers. They're stapling everything. Like, everything's a stapler. You need me to staple that? And they're just stapling everything. Okay, we're going to remember stapler guy, right? Whenever they show up again. So you need something unique. Now, I'm not saying you need something neurotic like that, but you do need something that makes it unique for that person. Why are they like they are? What makes them important to the story? What makes them stand out? Another strategy to introduce a group of people is to not meet them all together. We're going to meet them individually in their own collective environments, and then all of them are going to show up. So we might have this person over here, this person over here, this person over here. And this is really helpful if you're creating a story where there's a team of people. So it's like a group of mercenaries, for example, coming together, or a group of people who are going to rob a bank, or a group of people who are going to do a specific job, or a group of people who are joining a sports team. Like, whatever it is, if you've got a group of people coming together to do something, sometimes it's really helpful to meet them individually, especially the key players, and then see them all together, because now we have a sense of who this person is and that one and this one and that one, and then we can see them all together and how they're going to interact, and we can anticipate some of the problems that are going to happen because we've met them all in their individual environments. The problem with this is if you have a lot of people to introduce, well, you're probably spending about half a page of your screenplay just introducing one person. So if you're meeting 4 people, okay, that's 2 pages of just meeting people. And do you really have the time to spend 2 minutes meeting all of these people? And maybe you do, and maybe your story might be better suited to do it that way. So don't dismiss that one out of hand, because it is a very good strategy and it's used a lot in stories. The next one is one that people tend to default to. Well, I just need to meet all my characters all at once. They're all just showing up just all at once. Here we go. We're all in the same room. So how do I introduce them? Well, you kind of have to understand, one, how scenes work, right? A scene is an entity that belongs to someone. So someone's leading us through that moment. You don't just introduce the characters willy-nilly, right? They are being introduced as they interact with whoever scene it is. Hopefully it's the main character. The problem with doing all at once introductions is it often leads to confusion about who the main character is. Sometimes there are other characters involved that aren't going to be important to the story, and the reader is thinking, well, do I need to pay attention to all these people or some of these people? Who am I supposed to note? And so that's where it gets a little confusing. Maybe a way to think about an all-at-once scene, if we're all together, is kind of like that first one I gave where they're walking through an office or something like that. And they're leading us through, but it's more in a group setting. So it's this person, then this one, then this one. Now, each person still needs to do something unique, but even more important when we're meeting characters all at once, they have to be even more unique and more distinct from each other than in the walkthrough scene. In the walkthrough scene, they need to be distinct from each other, but we kind of have a little leeway. They can be a little similar. But if we start meeting them all together, they really need to be distinct. Let me note here, when I talk about having a unique character, I'm not talking about having a character that we've never seen before, although those are great. I am talking about having a character that is distinctive from everybody else in the story, that they have distinguished themselves amongst the other people. This is the expert in this, or this person does this, or this is the person that does that. And if we can encapsulate their distinctiveness from other people, not just from everybody, but just from other people in the story, that's going to be really helpful to us as we're telling our story and as we're introducing these characters, because the more distinctive they are from each other, the easier it's going to be to remember them. A fourth way to introduce a bunch of characters is to have it narrated, right? A voiceover, like, well, let's talk about Bob. And sometimes this happens in recruiting scenes. So you've got a group of people and they're trying to decide, okay, who are we going to recruit for this? It's going to be this person or this person. It's like, well, so-and-so is over here, they really like cats. So I don't know if that's going to go well. And that's not really going to mesh with this other person who's highly allergic to cats. So do we want the person who loves cats or the person who's allergic to cats on our team? So one way to introduce groups of people is just to narrate. And then you can tell us like, okay, here's what's important about them. Here's what's unique about them. And they're doing something else. So we're learning something different about their character. Now, the problem with this one is it starts to feel a little clunky, because you can, yes, give us some exposition as you're introducing the characters, but what happens is it starts to feel exposition clunky if you're introducing characters using narration. So I would probably try to stay away from this one if you can. Here's some advice, though, to kind of help you navigate this. Meeting characters one at a time is better for clarity. Whether they're walking through an environment or we're meeting them all individually, those tend to be better and more effective in the story and helping a reader track with who these characters are and keeping them straight. Those are more helpful than everybody meets all together. And you might be saying, well, but in my head, I just see them all meeting together. Well, figure out a different way. That's what screenwriters do. We solve problems. So it's a problem, so solve the problem. Find a way around it. Maybe we start meeting them as the person's walking into the room. We meet this person and this person and this person and this person, and they all get together and now they're talking. But we've had a chance to meet each of them and start to understand their relationship. That tends to be a little better and a little easier for clarity for the reader. Another thing that's helpful is introduce your characters using conflict. So put them in a situation where there is conflict. We want to see how they deal with conflict because that reveals a lot about character. Okay, I may not remember everything about this person, but I do remember they're very passive aggressive. Or I do remember that they get very angry very quickly if you touch them. So don't touch them, don't touch my stuff, or I'm going to be upset. And if we can remember how they deal with conflict, that helps us better understand the character and more easily recall who that character is. Last bit of advice, and this is probably the most important piece of advice. Make sure you are introducing your main character first. If you're having a group of people that we're going to meet, like we're going to meet all these people, let us meet your main character first. We, the audience, the reader, whoever's reading your script, we need to know who the main character is. We can latch onto them and they can navigate us through meeting all these other people. If you're not introducing your main character first, that might cause a problem. Now, there is a way around this one though. One way around it is to have each person we meet talk about the main character that we're about to meet. I can't believe I'm working with so-and-so again. Have you worked with him before? No, but he's got a bad reputation. It's like, yeah, he's crazy, right? Like, I don't know if he's crazy, but he like does weird things that you just don't expect. And they're all talking about the main character. That helps us, the audience, know that they are not the main character. So if we don't meet the main character first, the people that we're meeting need to be talking about the main character so we can start to have some expectation of what's going to happen in the story when we meet the main character and when all these people finally come into contact with each other. Hopefully that is helpful to you. If you have specific questions, you can always drop them in comments below. I'm happy to try to respond to those. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all those things. Thank you so much. Don't forget about resources below. They might be helpful to you. And when you go to tell a story, whether you're introducing a bunch of characters or just, it's very standard, tell a story that matters. See you later.